Information Literacy, Location and Evaluation, done by Mavish, Krista, Victoria, and Paula. This is our assignment to redo. Take 2.
Today we'll be going over the thesis, keywords and phrases, analysis questions, location challenges, evaluating resources, challenges, critical analysis, and resources. The thesis we decided on was the Ontario K-12 education system is not effectively teaching numeracy skills to children, which is necessary for their future understanding of math and decision-making ability. Some keywords and phrases that helped shape our presentation were math, numeracy, school-age children, numeracy skills, Canada, Ontario, education, K-12, early numeracy Ontario, numeracy in Ontario children, number milestones, education system in Ontario, education statistics in Ontario, numeracy learning outcomes in Ontario. Canadian mathematics curriculum, Ontario math program, early numeracy in Canada, education statistics in Canada, math learning outcomes in Canada, and numeracy levels for Ontario. The 4 analysis questions we came up with were: what is the research supporting the Ministry of Ontario curriculum and numeracy? What components are most important in creating a strong curriculum? What is the outcome of students' performance in numeracy at an early age? And what is the long-term importance of numeracy?
Overall, we found some challenges in locating information. We had a hard time finding some scholarly articles, and when we did, we really had to pay attention to the publication dates because most of them were in the 2000s when it's 2020. And when we found resources, there was really a lack of information in the resources, and we couldn't find resources to answer our research questions and our analysis questions. With that being said, we actually had a thesis change. At first, we wanted to look at numeracy in all of Canada and realized it changed way too much from province to province, especially with education. So we decided to narrow it down and only look for numeracy in Ontario, which led us to more reliable sources, but it was still quite tricky to locate some of them. Reliable sources. Some sources that our group found very helpful were Google Scholar. We were able to use advanced searches and look for numeracy in all of Ontario, whereas YRDSB is a school board in Ontario, so it gave us a little bit of an insight and inside information in numeracy, as well as Omni, where we really got to use, again, the advanced search, which helped us with using our keywords. Some resources that we found not helpful were YouTube, Omni, and Google. YouTube had a lot of fake news, and we weren't able to really fact check them or check if they were really a reliable source. Omni only because it only had so much information about numeracy in Ontario, and Google searches were just way too broad. It helped us on Google Scholar. With Google Scholar, we were able to use an advanced search, but with Google, it was just way too broad. And even though we were searching numeracy in Ontario, other provinces were still popping up. So there was a lot of information that we just didn't find that helpful.
When looking at the resources we compiled, we faced several challenges with evaluating the material. Firstly, the process of locating resources and evaluating their value on our thesis topic was very time-consuming. Our group did some research from Canadian resources and studies within the past 5 years, but there were also many resources from the 2000s that we wanted to consider, but had to go through to see if their studies were too dated to be of value. We also found it hard to find specific resources that we were looking for, as the key words and phrases brought forth a lot of material. Many resources seemed promising, but upon going through the study, we determined that the information didn't directly relate to our thesis or lacked enough information to relate back to Ontario K-12 specifically. There was also a challenge with finding Canadian studies, as there were many conducted in other countries, such as the United States or European countries, but when evaluating the material, we felt that the location of the study was important context, and so we ruled out international studies. Additionally, there were a few resources that didn't provide the location, and so we couldn't be sure of the context in which the author was speaking without doing further evaluation of the author's location. Because we mainly chose to stick with academic sources, we only looked at a few newspaper articles. The challenge with these articles is that the topic is correct and relevant to Ontario K-12. There's often a lack of actual statistics and scholarly references. The information presented was more to show the opinion of those involved in the education system for some perspective on the topic. We also found that there are lots of statistics available, but the source of the issue is complex, and so many articles touched on aspects of the problem in the education system, but didn't do a thorough analysis of K-12 in Ontario. Thus, we often had to synthesize the findings into relevant information. The references within the resources were often not available to view, or we couldn't find them using the Ontario TechU library database. When critically analyzing our process, there are things we learned about locating information and some ways in which we would change or adjust our approach in future projects. Our group found it difficult to locate reliable resources using just the Ontario Tech University library search engine. We also used advanced searches on Google Scholar. Both of these options brought forth too much information which was not specific enough for our topic. We would have made better use of the advanced search options once we discovered which keywords produced more refined results. We also would have done a little more investigating into which databases seemed to be producing relevant results, so that way we could look within those instead of doing general searches on the Ontario TechU library. We tried other search engines such as YouTube and a basic Google search, but did not find either of these to be very helpful other than for event and opinion information such as news articles. We would have limited our search for any statistics to be within the last 5 years so that outdated sources would not be considered as highly in our research, or rather would be compared with more current statistics. We would also make better use of the references used within the studies that we found to be the most reliable. When looking at our thesis topic, we would have changed our approach to do research prior to establishing the statement so that we knew that there were enough sources available and then create the thesis statement based on some initial findings.